Modern economies are increasingly partitioned by invisible, bureaucratic walls that strictly dictate who is allowed to earn a living. Across the European Union, 22% of the workforce requires specific government permission to perform their jobs. That is 47 million people. This cohort operates behind a bureaucratic barrier of occupational licensing and professional accreditation. The stated justification for these barriers is quality control, intended to protect consumers from dangerous or incompetent practitioners. Macroeconomic data reveals that this framework forms the foundation of economic exclusion for the most vulnerable citizens. Economists analyzing the actual outcomes of these safety regulations find widespread economic damage. These regulations create an artificial scarcity in the labor market. The primary result is the destruction of an estimated 700,000 jobs across the European Union. When the labor market functions like a pipeline, professional insiders control the valves. The numerous clauses valve uses government-enforced caps to limit practitioner supply before training begins. Professional orders exercise state-delegated power to dictate who can legally compete against them. The people writing these rules frequently exempt themselves from the standards they impose on others. Existing practitioners mandate expensive training and rigorous exams for all future workers, while utilizing grandfathering clauses to bypass those requirements themselves. These mechanisms choke off the supply of new labor to insulate legacy incumbents. Restricted labor supply shifts the burden of cost onto the everyday consumer market. When professional orders restrict supply, the equilibrium price for their services rises. High-income consumers absorb this spike, paying a premium for highly regulated services. Low-income consumers who need basic functional services are priced out of the legal market. This reverse Robin Hood mechanism acts as a regressive tax, forcing poorest citizens to forego care or turn to dangerous alternatives to subsidize the wages of the wealthy. These barriers also control the movement of human capital across international borders. Licensing institutions act as a screening mechanism. They utilize statistical discrimination, using localized credentials and language tests as proxies for unobservable traits, to penalize outsiders. The European Union Survey of Occupational Regulation shows that migrant workers are 15% less likely to be represented in licensed professions compared to native workers. Country-specific exams invalidate a foreign-born worker's existing expertise. Excluded workers are pushed into the unregulated low-wage labor pool. For the few migrants who pass the screening, the wage premium is 10.3 log points, reflecting the intensity of the barrier. Occupational regulation preserves high-paying sectors for native insiders and locks marginalized populations out of economic mobility. These economic outcomes are a direct result of how the laws are drafted. The system operates through regulatory capture, where the industry being regulated essentially takes control of the government agency tasked with overseeing it. The push for broader licensure typically originates from within the professions themselves. The legislation is lobbied for, written by, and enforced by the practitioners it is supposed to regulate. When the regulators and the regulated are the same individuals, the system functions as a legal cartel. Credentialism destroys labor supply, extracts monopoly rents from the poor, and statistically excludes migrants. The 700,000 jobs lost in Europe are a calculated result of these policies. This poverty is an intended feature required to protect the top 10%. The credentialist fortress drives systemic poverty and wealth disparity through legal mechanisms. This system is one of the most effective drivers of wealth disparity operating in the modern global economy.